Hey everyone, welcome back to Minibike Mike's Garage, and welcome to the second video on the bike that I am building to take to Moab, Utah in September of 2025. I've got one previous video on this, and this is where we kind of stripped the frame down, got it ready. I talked about how I'm going to use the internal space inside the frame as a toolbox, and in preparation of doing that, I took out a couple little brackets that are behind these shields that hold the help support the gas tank. So we did that. We set it up on an engine, had to clearance a little spot there for the crankcase vent, and then we changed out the bearing cups to go with the Ice Bear Champion front end. And that's about where we got in the last video. I'd really like to see it get up into a roller today so that we can kind of start thinking about racking and how we're going to carry items and so forth, because we're going to be on the road for 7 days. So let's jump into this and see how it goes. I believe when I left you guys off in the first video, I had this stem installed in this head tube, but I have since taken it off. I'm using a stock Honda CT70 front fender that uses the 3-bolt pattern. And since this is an Ice Bear Champion front end and it does not have the front fender bolt up here to the bottom of the stem, there was no threaded spot right here in the middle. So I had to pull this back out and weld in a nut right there so that we would have some place to mount that fender. So let me throw this on here, and then we will get I think we'll throw the fender and the horn on next. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put the fender on before I put the forks on. It might be a little easier to get the fender up in there now rather than wrestling it in between the forks. The horn has a couple captured nuts or welded nuts, and that's what the front 2 bolts of the fender bolt to. All right, I'm gonna buzz that down a little bit tighter. Now, I know you might be questioning, I didn't put any grease or anything in these bearings. This whole bike is going to get blown completely back apart to paint it. So this is all just test fit stuff right now. I'm not, we'll come back and grease things and finish them when we're ready to do the final assembly on the bike. I'm going to go ahead and put the top clamp on. I made some headlight ears that will fit over the forks of the Ice Bear Champion. They're going to fit up in here. Put a bolt in here so it doesn't fall back out. All right. So make sure when you go to put these things together, there is a right and a left. The left side of the bike typically has the brake stay. On the Ice Bear Champion, it had that bracket for the disc brake. If you watched the first video, you know that I cut all that off and I put a brake stay. We're going with a old school drum brake on this particular bike. I know somebody's going, why are you doing that, Mike? Well, that's what I wanted, so that's what I'm going with. I thought it might be, I'm trying to simplify things, and I did not want to have any issues with a disc brake out on the trail. And I have had almost 0 issues ever with a drum brake. I think next, let's put the handlebars on before we put the bucket on and have a speedometer in a way. These are just generic eBay CT70 style bars. They're shaped a little bit differently. They don't have any brake perches or anything on it, which is what I was kind of after. I am not going with any knobs I'm going to go with a hex bolt here just so that it's easier to throw a wrench on it and get them loose and get them tighter. I don't want the knobs. Yeah, I'm just, like I said, there again, this is all about making life as easy as possible for 7 days in Moab, Utah. Okay, now let's go ahead and see if we can bolt the headlight on it. Now, I will admit, I kind of wish I wasn't going with this fiberglass headlight bucket, but the frame I'm using is a K0, and I just can't bring myself to put a steel bucket off of like a K1 or later that had the separate headlight and speedometer. I want this particular look because that's the frame I'm using. Now, I do know also somebody's gonna say, well, you know, use an Ice Bear Champion headlight bucket. I could have gone that route if I had one. Ice Bear Champion uses the same style headlight speedometer bucket. The headlight's a little bit bigger diameter, and the bucket is aluminum, I believe, and so much sturdier than this fiberglass. I'm probably going to break this on the trip because I'm probably going to down the bike at some point. I'm going to break that, but I don't know. That's all the way till September. Maybe between now and September, I come across somebody that's wanting to get rid of an Ice Bear Champion headlight bucket, and I can swap this out. Got plenty of time. Okay, let's go ahead and throw a front tire on it. All right, I've got my spacer in the back side. I'll slide that up. Brake stay. Fantastic. Now, hopefully that's not too much weight. It's going to tip the whole bike off the table. No. All right, let me get that buttoned up, and then maybe we'll move into putting on, let's go with the rear. Let's put the swing arm in the back to just kind of balance it out. Let's get it into a roller. I think in the back, I'm just going to start with the 4 bolts that go into the rear fender and get that mounted. Then we'll move on to swing arm and some shocks, and eventually get the back tire on this so that we can take that stand out from underneath it and actually be a roller. All right, let me get that buttoned up. Now this bright yellow swing arm, this was the swing arm that actually came with this frame. They had both been painted really bright yellow. I obviously have stripped the frame. I have not done anything to the swing arm, so we'll burn all the paint off of it also, but for mock-up purposes, it's gonna stay yellow. These are Amazon shocks. Hopefully that paint's not so thick. Yeah, it did go. I was afraid it wasn't gonna slide over there. I need to probably go get some washers for the top and do that right. There's washers that go behind these to keep from pushing that center bushing out. This top part could actually slide right off of the rubber and without those washers back there. So I'll grab those. And while I'm grabbing that, I'll grab the back tire and the rear axle. Make sure you put your axle adjuster on there. I always start by taking the spacer that goes on this side and just kind of hanging the bolt right there on it. Got your brake plate in place. There is another little spacer that fits on this side. And I should have let that jack down. Am I gonna be able to get that jack out of there? Yeah, we'll put a wrench on it. All right, now I'm gonna try and lift that up. put your other axle adjuster on this side, and then your nut. Brake stay has got a bolt that goes in from the back side. Get it seated in there. Nut there. All right. All right. I think next what I'm going to do, I'll take a minute and I'm going to get this stand out from underneath it so that we can roll it back and forth and just put it up into the wheel chalk, and then continuing just putting parts on it. Well, as usual for me, I'm going to switch it up just a little bit. Before I take this stand out, I've decided I want to go ahead and throw the chain on here, and it's easier to do with it up in the stand while I can roll this rear tire, because I want to get this bike in a complete roller. I want to know, when I tear it down to paint it, I want to know that it is 100% ready to go. Just tear it down, paint it, and then put it back together and not have to modify anything after I've already painted it. So one of the things I want to do is this particular engine came with a 428 front sprocket, and I want to put a 420. And it's only 14 tooth, it says, and I want to go 16 tooth. Hopefully I got a sprocket that is the same splined shaft as this. It comes in a couple sizes, and I think I've got this one that's too small. Oh no. Let me go see if I have, this is the 17 millimeter spline shaft, and this is a 20 millimeter. So I need to see if I can find a 16 tooth 420 sprocket that has the 20 millimeter shaft to fit on there. Well, I did not have a 16 tooth sprocket for there. Oh, I had 15s and 17s. So I have fitted a 15. And we're going to maybe leave the chain a little loose, and that way, oh, it must not be in neutral. And then we can, when we get a 16 here in another day or so, we can swap that out and still have room to adjust for a larger chain, or for a larger sprocket. So we're going to go right there. And we may just run the 15. I don't know. All right, I need to, wherever I did with my chain brake, and I got to break this chain at this spot right there, and then put it together. All right, guys, the battery is just about dead on my camera on my phone, so I think we're going to stop for today. Won't be the end of the video, but we'll stop for today. So I got the chain on. I went ahead and modified the chain guard to fit the life and cover. You guys, if you haven't seen me do that, I have a specific video on that. Went ahead and put a seat on it, and just as all the other seats have done, the rubber bushings here are too thick and will not allow the latch to come down and work. So we'll have to, at some point, trim those rubber bushings. We'll do that when I come back in another day or so. But we're up in a roller, and now we can start, putting some controls on and doing some other things. But the big thing I wanted to do here was get my length figured out. So now I know what kind of racking I need to do on the back. I don't want to have so much that it makes this thing hugely wheelie happy, more than the 125cc is going to do. So anyway, I'll pick you guys back up in another day or so. Well, guys, it is multiple days down the road, probably a week later, I would say, from when I last touched this bike and got it up into a roller. I'm ready to do some more work today. It's about 3 degrees outside. It's really cold, so if the audio goes bad, hearing my heat kick on and off, I apologize about that. Before I really tackle the stuff in the back, the major part of the racking, how I'm going to store and carry items, I want to get the front end finished. I've got an idea for some turn signals. I need to do something to strengthen up the handlebars. I know I've got some reflectors that I want to put on the front. I'll show you what's going on there. Then I want to look at the exhaust, the skid plate, and the kickstand foot pegs. So if there's any kind of fabrication that's going to need to be done to those items, I want to go ahead and get that all knocked out, lined up before I move to the back and start tackling that. So let me bring you in and show you a little bit closer view of what I got planned up here in front. The first thing up front I'm going to tackle are the turn signals. Now I have fabbed up these little square tubes. I have capped off one end, and I have drilled a 3/4 inch hole in the other end. This end I've left open because it's going to get welded to that ear, something like that, on both sides. I've got 2 of them, one for each side. And then I've got some of these little LED, probably like running lights for a trailer or something like that, that I am going to use for turn signals. I am attempting to simplify and make my life easier. I don't want something sticking out here that can break off because I'm going to down this bike out in Moab. I know I'm going to. At some point, I'll probably lay this thing down. So what I'm thinking is something along those lines on both sides. Weld that in, and then that will give me a turn signal on both sides to make sure that I'm street legal out there. So I've got to do that. I want to weld those on. The other thing I want to do is get some reflectors on. The Ice Bear Champion has a mount right here for a reflector. I picked up some of the smaller CT70 K0 reflectors. Unfortunately, the Ice Bear has a 6mm threaded hole right there, and the reflectors use a 5mm, so it slides on and off and won't stay. So luckily the reflectors do come with a nut on the back of them right here. I don't know why. I'm glad it does. I'm glad it did, because I'm going to use that nut. I've put it on a 5mm bolt. I'm going to actually grind this off a little bit, shorten it down, stick that in there, weld that nut to that, then that will give me something to thread that reflector on. So let's do that first. Let's tackle those 2 items, get those done, then we'll move to something else. I put some WD-40 between the reflector and the rubber to let it slide a little easier so it doesn't catch that rubber. I want to turn it with it. That's probably good enough right there. All right, let me back you up and show you what we've done. So that's what that's kind of going to look like. I only just tacked these on here. I'll go through and finish weld them once I can pull those ears off. Reflectors, I just welded a 5mm nut on there so that they could thread those reflectors on there. And like I said, these are just tacked. Probably should have made them a little bit deeper to give myself some more welding space here, but I'll get it in there all right. Okay, let me see where I want to go next. So I don't know if I want to go foot pegs or handlebars, but I want to do something across bar here. Let me see if I've got material to do that today. Now I haven't welded either one of these in. I've got a top bar here, and then I've got one down at the bottom. They're just sitting in there for right now. I've just kind of fit them, but I want to weld those in for a couple different reasons. One, I don't really trust these Chinese clamps, the handlebar clamps holders. I don't want to lay the bike down, hit on the end of the handlebar, and snap that off or something, and then have issues with handlebars the rest of the trip. So I'm hoping that by tying these together, it will give it a lot more strength down here. You know, I won't be able to just move the one handlebar. It's going to have to shift the whole thing, and hopefully these will stay, you know, structurally sound. As you can see, I do have another one sitting there on the seat that I will be taking on the trip in case I do break this or somebody else on the trip breaks it. So that's one reason why I am going to weld these in, to kind of just strengthen up the whole thing. The other one is this bar will actually then give me another place to mount cameras and phones and GPS speedos and all that. I'm going to take up most of this space with levers and controls and the grips and so forth. So this will allow me to attach those things, plus then maybe if I need to strap a bag to the front of this, I've got something else to wrap it around. So I'm going, just like I did with the turn signal stuff, I'm just going to tack those in for right now, get them all leveled up. I think I'm a little, maybe a little high on this side right now. I need to kind of level it up and tack those in, and then we'll move on to the next item. Well, they're definitely not perfect. I know I got this one high on this side, it kind of leans a little bit. Not a big concern. Okay, now, like I said, I don't really trust these mounts that come on the Chinese bikes. I have seen those break, but there is one good thing about them, and that is the fact that they are parallel to each other. On a Honda, these things are, they flare out, so you can't tie the handlebars together on a Honda, the Honda style clamp, and then be able to get the handlebars out like I can here, because like I said, these things are set at an angle, and you know, it gets wider as you try and pull apart. So that is the one good thing about these. So if something does happen to that, I can pull that out and it's just going to fit right in the other one. All right, let's move. I think now let's move to the exhaust and the foot pegs. For this bike, I decided I wanted to go with a set of, well, I wanted a center stand is what I wanted. So I have picked up a pair of pegs that have a center stand and side stand on them from PCC Motor. Give me a second. Let me see if I can get this all put up on here. Maybe. And I'm sure they're going to need some tweaking done to them. And I want to see how they fit with the engine guard. Okay, I can already see that the stand on this side is rubbing the chain. Oh, you know what? I'll show it to you here in a minute. It looks like there should have been a rubber stop that I did not get. That maybe as the stand folds up, it's supposed to hit right there. We'll have to add something to that, because it allows the center stand to go up too far and it gets into the chain. I think I want it to be down more something like that. Yeah, I think I'm missing a piece. Oh well, not something we can't take care of. And it's got this big, I'm gonna cut this off of here too. It's what you use to catch with your foot. I really don't want that. I may shorten it. I don't want that big a piece. How does the side stand look? Side stand's too short. We'll need to lengthen that. All right, let me grab the engine guard next, because I really want to go with an engine guard and see if it's going to mount with these foot pegs. I need to get some more hardware to mount it up in there. Well, much to a huge surprise, I did not have to modify that engine guard at all to get it to work with these foot pegs. It just bolted right in place. No interference. Everything worked fine. Now that I'm on this side of the bike, I do see that this leg of this center stand is awfully close to the tire, way too close for my comfort. So we'll probably have to heat this up and bend this, just bend it out slightly to make sure it doesn't get into that tire. Okay, so I think I need to pull the guard back off, because now I want to put the exhaust on, and I got grinder dust all over my brand new engine. Oh no! I want to make sure that the guard will fit with the exhaust on. So I got to pull this back off and throw the exhaust on there. With the exhaust loosely mounted on there, but up in there tight, I put the guard back on. The other side mounted up just fine, just like I would expect it to. But I ran into an issue over here. I can't get my bolts to line back up over here. I'm hitting the exhaust. Now, I might be able to bend and tweak and do all those things to get there, but I've run into this problem before using these, cheap $60 Chinese exhausts. And the fix that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the exhaust back off, and I am going to cut off the collar that fits up into the head, and I'm going to weld on another piece, and that will shorten the distance from where it enters the head and here. I'm actually going to try and shorten this distance up a little bit so that that will go up and clear with no issues. Back here, where it's at now, I did get the exhaust to actually mount up onto the post, but I mean, I could not. It's as far back. I'm up against the back of the bracket here. I think when I shorten this and it raises this, I think it's going to push it back a little bit and center the post, the threaded part, in this hole a little bit. We'll see what happens. I made that mistake one time. Before I shortened that, I moved this bracket to the center. Then I wound up having to shorten that to get the guard to fit. And then after I shortened it, well, then it pushed this bracket too far back. So I'm going to leave this alone for right now. And we're going to go back and cut that off and re-weld another piece on and kind of shorten up that exhaust. So I'll be right back in just a minute. For anybody that might not understand exactly what I did, I cut this collar. Hopefully that's in view. This was the piece that was on the end of that pipe, and it was more up here. So I just cut it flush right off at the bottom of the collar, and then I had a 1.25" OD, I think 120 thousandths wall round tubing, which is basically the same OD as the piece I cut off. And then I slid it on and welded it in place, and that essentially shortened this pipe by that much, 5/8 of an inch. So let's see how we fit now. Now, before, make sure if you do this, make sure you still have the collar, the mounting thing here, flange. Make sure you have that still on the pipe before you weld your new collar on, or you'll have to cut it all back off and do it all over again. Oh, and perfect. So by shortening that 5/8 of an inch, it basically centered this exhaust bracket right on that post, which is perfect, right where I wanted it. Okay, let me throw a couple nuts on here just to kind of hold it up in place. All right, and then I'm going to jump to the other side and throw the engine guard on. And here we go. This is the test. Are we going to be able to? Oh, yeah. Crazy how much room that gained us. So now we can bolt on the engine guard, and I'll go ahead and show it to you. And we've got good clearance on the pipe now. So that worked out really, really well. And then, like I said, back here, it didn't quite center, but it's pretty daggone close. All right, guys, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up here. I think we've probably got a good 30 minutes of footage that I can make a video out of. I've got most of the fabrication done, at least on the front part. I still need to tinker with this the center stand. I still need to maybe bend that out. Obviously, I've got to go back and do all the final welds on everything that we did. The exhaust is done. I final welded that. So pretty happy with where we're going. I like how it looks. Hopefully you guys are digging it. Before I go, in the last video, the first video on this, I posed a question to you guys. How many of these M6x1 holes are in a frame, on a K0 frame? All these little holes right here, because I talked about how I'd gone through with a tap and cleaned out all the threads or so forth. Only had one person that actually got the answer right on the very first get-go, and that was Sean Ireland. Sean, if you want to send me an email with your address, I'd love to send you out a care package of some goodies, a t-shirt or something. So the answer was 22. There are 22 M6x1 threaded spots on a CT70 K0 frame. You've got 4 that hold on the back fender. You've got 2 that hold on the tail light right here. You've got 2 that hold the seat latch. So now we're up to 8. There are 2 on the side here for the tank bracket and the battery box. So that's 10. You've got the 2 for the grab handle, which the CT70 didn't use, but they're still there. So that's 12. You've got the opposite side has these exact same 2 on the other side. So that's, 14? Then down below, there are 2 that are for the chain guard. So what's that, 16? You've got 2 here, 17, 18, and 2 on the other side, 19 and 20. You've got 1 right here where the air cleaner mounts right here. That's 21. And the one that most people forget is this little post right here that the rear brake cable comes through and threads into that. So that's number 22. So on just the frame of a CT70 K0, there are 22 different locations where an M6x1 threaded hole is that you need to clean out. So anyway, guys, hope you're enjoying the video. This series, this is going to be a multiple video series. This is number 2. You can go back and find the first one where we kind of started working on the frame. So it's going to take me quite a few videos to get this wrapped up and get it to where the way I want it. In the next video, hopefully we'll have it at least maybe, let's see if we can hear it run and make sure that's going to happen. And then eventually we've got to move to the back and work on that rack for the fuel tank and how we're going to carry all our baggage. I'll see you guys on the next video.